Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another season reloaded. This time, of course, season 5 has been reloaded, and with this, we have a bunch of new stuff. I'm not going to go really too in-depth with Black Ops Cold War in this video, as not much changed. We got the new map, Zoo. On top of that, some new zombies changes over there, but mainly this video is going to be focused on Warzone, the new playlist updates, what is going to be coming throughout the rest of the season, as they gave us information on that, including the numbers event. But the big thing really for this update is a bunch of weapon changes, and we're going to be diving into those, discussing how it's going to affect the meta, and that is kind of the biggest thing, or the bulk of this update is actually those weapon changes. Now, of course, there are some other things scattered in here and there that we're going to be going over, but those weapon changes are really the big one. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is everything within season 5 reloaded, specifically diving into the Warzone stuff. So as far as the playlist this week, we have our normal battle royale, quads, trios, duos, and solos. We also have Clash, which essentially is just a large scale team deathmatch, 50v50. We've seen this before. It was not called Clash, but pretty straightforward. We also have Rebirth, Resurgence, quads, and trios as well. However, there are two other playlists that we have learned about so far, and one other one that is just interesting. Let me explain. So as far as these other game modes, in the patch notes, they've actually listed what is coming out every single week. So for example, next week on the 16th, Iron Trials 84 Duos is coming to the game. So this is the game mode with more health, faster health regeneration. You can only buy your loadouts. It's a little bit more competitive, if you will. If we scroll down a little bit further, you will see that on the 23rd, they're going to have some sort of poll or something on Twitter where you can choose the next game mode. On the 30th, there is something called Rebirth Resurgence Extreme, which essentially is going to be 100 players on Rebirth Island. It's going to be absolutely insane. And then at the very bottom, it says something, and the return of a mode not seen in quite some time. Now, that could be a lot of things, but I do have a theory. If you scroll down, there is a section in the patch notes that's just called General. It shows this image here. It's kind of scratched out. And then off to the right, it appears as though someone has their weapons scratched out. If you go and look at the question marks down in the bottom, you can click on this and it brings us to a new image. In this image, it basically looks like Dark Ether and zombies and things along those lines, and a lot of people assumed that this was just talking about the zombies camos, because if you didn't already know, if you go in game and then check out any of the Black Ops Cold War weapons, inside the gunsmith, if you go to customize, there is now the option to equip zombies camos. So if you have Dark Ether, you're actually able to equip that within Warzone. It finally happened. People have been asking for it for a very long time, and now you can do it. Now, the thing with this is, with that teaser that we saw before in that image, a lot of people are assuming that that's what that was for. However, I think it would make a lot of sense if that returning game mode that they were talking about is actually the zombies game mode that we had back in the Halloween event back in Haunting of Verdansk. We'll have to wait and see, but I think with those teasers, that would make a lot of sense. Now, on top of this, with the new store items, essentially we got two new ones this week. First of all, we have the 20 tier skip bundle. So with this, you get the Kyuubi skin for Kitsune, which I already have, and on top of this, 20 tier skips for 1400 COD points, which is a slightly lower price than if you were to just buy the tier skips themselves. It's a strange bundle. I don't get it, but there it is. And then also the Ghost Ship, which is the weapon here, which looks really good with Dark Ether if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, that's basically the bundles for this week. So in Season 5 Reloaded, Hudson has been added to the game. However, you can't unlock him through the store currently or purchase him. However, if you go and check out his bio, there's a lot of really interesting information, especially when you scroll all the way down to the bottom. It mentions he leads an assault on the Menendez cartel in Nicaragua, primary target KIA. This very much so changes the story just a little bit of Black Ops 2 and is something we'll dive into in the future, but we'll talk about that in a future video. Now, the other thing that we got inside the blog post has to do with the numbers event. Now, this is starting on September 21st, so kind of after the big flood from the Vanguard beta. And with this, we kind of learned what this is going to be all about. First of all, there is mobile broadcast stations that we have seen across the map. Basically, you will go to these and receive rewards for completing challenges around these areas. And if you complete all 9 challenges, you get the Psy melee weapon. Pretty straightforward. They haven't said anything about the story or anything like that, how that is going to fit into the game. But again, that starts September the 21st. So moving on to the weapon changes. So there's a lot of these for specific attachments and then a lot for specific weapons. Starting out with the C58, the recoil was adjusted. Essentially all you need to know about this is now there is more recoil. For the EM2, the base optic eye position was retracted, which basically makes it a little bit more difficult to use. It's kind of confusing, but that's essentially all you need to know. For the Modern Warfare Assault Rifle Bravo, the upper torso multiplier was decreased from 1.1 to 1. The Groza, the sprint to fire speed was increased by 15%. So this is actually a buff. So in other words, you can go from sprinting to shooting 15% faster. The Krig 6 is the next one, and it's interesting. So first of all, the maximum damage is decreased from 30 to 29. The mid damage is now 25. Previously, there was no mid damage range. And the minimum damage was decreased from 25 to 23. So this very much so changes up the weapon. And on top of this, the weapon kick was adjusted. So now it actually has less recoil. I don't know what this is going to do for this weapon. It's going to change it up drastically, and it's probably one of the biggest changes that we'll see. After this, we have the Stoner. The recoil was slightly increased. I don't know why. I didn't think this was one of the best weapons, but now it's a little bit worse. After this, the AUG got its recoil decreased, so this one still won't be as good as it once was, but definitely an improvement. Next, the DMR-14. With this one, the recoil was adjusted, so it wasn't necessarily made worse or better, but they just changed the recoil on it, so I don't exactly know what that means at this point. Then the M16, the weapon kick was decreased, so in other words, there is less recoil now. And then the final tactical rifle is the Type 63. So this one, the headshot multiplier was decreased from 2.1 to 1.58. The neck multiplier increased from 1.2 to 1.58. The upper torso multiplier decreased from 1.2 to 1. The lower torso multiplier decreased from 1.1 to 1. And finally, the weapon kick was decreased. So in other words, it has less recoil, but does less damage. So this is a pretty big nerf, but it will do a little bit better at long range, but the headshots now suck. So definitely a nerf, but an interesting one at that. Moving on to SMGs, the first one we have is the MP5 for Modern Warfare. The 10mm rounds, the maximum damage was decreased from 34 to 31, which is a pretty big nerf. With the OTS-9, the maximum damage range was decreased by 6.2%. And then in my opinion, the strangest update is the PPSH-41. The weapon kick is adjusted and the ADS sway was adjusted. In the description of this, they explained that they did this so you could less reliably know where your bullets are going. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good. And then finally, we have sniper rifles. So for the Swiss K31, the recoil was adjusted. This doesn't really matter because it's a sniper rifle. And similarly with the ZRG 20mm, the recoil was adjusted. And similarly, it's a sniper rifle. So recoil doesn't really matter that much. Finally, we have a bunch of changes specifically to barrels. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but I'm going to have them go up on screen here. And essentially, you can pause it and read through all of these if you really want to. The only other change was to the serpent grip for the Groza. So other than that, nothing too crazy. But again, if you want to read through all of these, you can pause it and take a look at these. So that is essentially the update. There really, I have to say, wasn't anything crazy. And a big reason for that is because they're trying to avoid this event coming out at the same time as the Vanguard beta. So there's not a big amount of crossover there. So nothing too crazy within the update, but let me know what you think of it down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. Really helps out the channel. And if you're new here, like what you see, want to stay up to date on everything Call of Duty, be sure to subscribe, turn notifications on. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making